Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's just Kat. I am Kat. Today is episode 3. I know I took a little hiatus for the last 2 weeks. Honestly, it was just self-care. I needed to just step back and reassess, and I'm back. So today we're going to talk about my birth story. Not my birth story, but the birth story that I have birthing my daughter. Uh, it's going to take a good 3 episodes to get through, so bear with me. It's a lot of, just a lot of self reflecting, I think. And oh, I see the tree in the back, it's bare. If y'all have noticed, it has not been decorated yet. Yeah, it'll happen. Anyway, so birth story, daughter, yes. Um, it it was drama. Okay, so let's get started because I can think about what to say all day long and then not saying anything. So let me start off. So I am divorced, but I married my ex about, let's say, the 4th year of college. Um, I was very much a 5th year college kid. I think it was just the credits and all that stuff, but it went into the 5th year. Graduated in the 5th year, but I ended up marrying my ex in the 4th year of my college journey. And we moved in together prior to that. And it was drama. There was a lot. We shouldn't have been married, number one. The Lord did not put us together, hence why we are separated, divorced, not together. If I can make that any clearer, I could. And it was just a lot of drama. It was a lot of me trying to figure out who I was, him trying to figure out who he was. I was not wifey material. I thought I was, playing house and thought I was cute. He was definitely not husband material. So, in a nutshell, we got along, but we didn't get along. There was a lot of struggle spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically that happened within our relationship up to marriage, in our engagement, and in the marriage. A lot of red flags happened, situations, uh, behaviors, um, trying to figure out how transparent I can be. Um, he was, um, and I'm going to say this there's no judgment. I was a hot mess, okay? Hot mess. And he was too. So me opening up about the things that, I had to go through in my marriage is not at all not against him, not trying to shut down his, character or anything like that. It's just the truth of the situation. And we are on good terms. We are co-parenting. So that this is basically our history. So I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of our marriage, and hopefully it'll help y'all in your guys' relationship or whatever you guys are going through. So he was an alcoholic. We were both very immature as to what we wanted in life, what we thought we wanted in life. Our vision of marriage and life was clouded just because of our broken families. Both of our parents came from divorced relationships, and it was a lot of trauma for both of us. So I think we took a lot of that into our own marriage, into and quite honestly trying trying to not repeat the mistakes our parents made. But in that, we definitely repeated the mistakes our parents made, just because we didn't heal first. We didn't go through the process of supplicating, of just unpacking all the mess that we had experienced, watching and witnessing the battles that our parents went through. And I think that definitely had an effect on how we saw ourselves and how we saw each other, and almost tried to cultivate this fairy tale relationship, and not really wanting to, what's the word? Not really wanting to face facts, honestly. He had a lot of red flags that I knew were red flags, but I dismissed them because of my desire to be loved. And I talked about this prior in one of my videos of just dealing with self-confidence and self-esteem and all of that stuff. So dismissing the red flags that were blatantly in my face was my way of trying to make things work, trying to be in control of my love life, trying to essentially, trying to be in control, write my own love story to a certain extent. And I fell in love with his potential and not who he was showing himself to be. We met in high school, and there was a lot of things that did not align. His personality, his character, his behaviors, his thought processes, everything that he shared with me and everything that I witnessed from him did not align with my beliefs as a Christian. Why did I get involved with this man? I was thirsty. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to feel accepted. I wanted a man to validate me. And because he was so willing to not reject me, I clung on to that. So that was high school, and that basically went all the way into our relationship, on and off relationship, at the beginning of college, and then into our engagement, and essentially into our marriage. And it came to a point in our marriage that I wasn't sure if I wanted kids with him, because I knew the type of person he was, and I knew the life we were living at the time. I was very depressed, just smiling and going through the process of work and school and home just to save face. I was eating my feelings. I didn't want to really talk about what happened behind closed doors at my home. Like, I was embarrassed of him. I was embarrassed of how I was living. We were not in the ghetto necessarily, but we were in like a poorer area in the valley, in San Fernando Valley, which is essentially LA for those who don't know this area. And we went from like a studio, got our couch from the side of a dumpster, didn't have a fridge for the first couple of months living there. And that was just a huge mistake. Let me backtrack, okay? I left dorm life. Okay, again, I was in college. I left the security of dorm life to move out with my ex, because, again, we wanted to play house and we thought it was, the thing to do, to a studio, and I was struggling. We struggled to pay bills. We struggled to eat every day. It was just a bad situation. And then we moved into a 1-bedroom across the street. Same landlord, same kind of setup. Again, it was like low income apartments, but it was high for us because we could never be on time for rent. We were constantly having 3-day notices, just struggling again to pay bills, and struggling to. I struggled to afford gas to go to work. Almost every month there was this question of, can I get to work? Because I literally had no money for gas. So we definitely financially were in a rut. And with him going in and out of jobs, he was never consistent in employment. He ended up getting more than one DUIs. So I was the constant financial source for our household, and it was a lot. Now I know within marriage, to feel unsupported and to feel like you're the only one that is keeping a household and a family unit together. The fact that I didn't lose my mind is a miracle. And with all the stress and the pressure, and obviously going through depression, like I said, I was sick all the time. The weight on my shoulders was heavy, y'all. Heavy, heavy, heavy. I would sit in my car coming home from work, and work was actually, I dealt with kids, okay? But work was actually a vacation for me to get away from like home life. So when driving home, I honestly didn't know what I was going to walk into every day. Was he going to be drunk? Was he going to be passed out? Was he going to be sober? Was he going to be in a bad mood? How was I going to deal with it? Dealing with kids all day, patience is low. And so it was a lot of, let's walk in and find out. So saying all that, we decided that a kid was a good idea. Having a kid was a good idea. I think honestly what it was we could barely hold it together in our marriage. And with our own personal struggles, we felt that having a child was going to make everything okay. That the love of a child, having a child in the midst of our relationship was the thing that was going to heal our relationship, bring happiness back to our household, bring the joy back. And so we tried for a year and nothing. And I honestly, half of me wanted to have a kid because I knew that having a kid was going to be a distraction for me. But also I wanted a kid so that I had, selfishly, that I had someone that was going to love me unconditionally, because I honestly did not feel loved by my ex unconditionally. And I desired to have that consistent acceptance from somebody else. And if that had to be from my own child, so be it. And then the other half of me did not want a kid just because of the situation. Who wants to bring, a kid into a jacked up marriage and a very depressing home? And I told myself that I did not want a kid to grow up in a divorced home, and look what I got. But that was and I'm saying all this because my mind was just constantly juggling these two thoughts, these two sides of, I don't want a kid with this man. I don't want a kid because I'm not right. I don't want a kid because we're struggling. I mean, half the time I'm worried about us being homeless. Like, we always got evictions. Our bills are always late. We always have to turn on our electricity because it got turned off because we're past due on our bills. I don't want to have to worry about another mouth to feed. We could barely feed ourselves. And then who's going to take care of the kid? I'm working. It was just a lot, right? I mean, childcare. I could barely afford rent. How am I going to afford childcare? And the prices back then, I mean, they're a lot now, but the prices back then were a lot. So going through those mind cycles of back and forth, I just gave up after the year. I said to myself, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I think deep down, I knew that this marriage wasn't going to last, because if it did, I wasn't going to last. So I gave it to God. That was one place in my life that I could give up control, was allowing him to gift me a child or not, because at that point I didn't care whether I got pregnant or not, just because of the situation. So I gave it to God, and that was that. And then something happens when you give God control, because things started happening. Months later, it was Thanksgiving, which is really ironic that I'm talking about this around Thanksgiving time. But my in-laws ended up cooking, so we went to go to my in-laws' house. We ate, we had fun, whatever. We ended up packing a whole bunch of food. I think my mother-in-law knew that, we struggled with food, so she packed us like all the fixings, all the leftovers, in Tupperware, and was like, here, have at it. I was grateful because I knew, number one, I didn't have to cook for a couple of days, and number two, I didn't have to buy any food for a couple of days. We were going to wear out that food until we couldn't, okay? That was going to save us a lot of money. That was the mindset I had. So got back home. About a week later, we were still eating leftovers. Again, this was feeding us. We did not have money for a lot of food. So to think back to God's grace and provision, even in week-old leftovers from Thanksgiving, grateful, okay? We were eating. So I took, and I remember this, I packed leftovers for lunch for work one morning, and I looked at the turkey, and I remember seeing the silver color, and now I know that means that it's not good anymore, Kat. But I looked at it and I was like, that's interesting, but it looks good, so I'm gonna pack it. So I packed it, and then I ate it for lunch at work. And it took a couple of hours, but by, let's say, 3 or 4 hours, I was in that bathroom throwing up. Everything was coming, like violent projectile, okay? And I immediately thought about that turkey. I said, I shouldn't have had that turkey. I looked, that color means that it's bad. And I felt miserable, okay? So I ended up telling my supervisor at the time. We were waiting for the last kids to get picked up from daycare, and I couldn't do nothing, stand up. I was just sitting at the table. I can't even drive home from work. I need to call my ex, and at the time my husband, to tell him to just come pick me up. So I called him. I explained that I had been throwing up for the past hour. I needed him to pick me up. I did not feel well. The first thing he said was, "You're pregnant." I said, "No, sir, am not." He said, "Yeah, you're pregnant." I said, "How do you even know that?" I would know that if I was pregnant, I would know, right? He said, "Well, you haven't had your period for a good week." I said, "How do you even know my schedule?" Okay. So we went back and forth. He was like, "Before I come pick you up, I'm going to get some pregnancy tests and you're going to take a test when we get home." I said, "You could take a test all you want to. I know I'm not pregnant. I ate bad turkey. That's it." So he ended up picking me up. I ended up going home. And I ended up talking to God the whole way home because I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Lord, I gave this to you. I honestly, at this point, I'm over trying to get pregnant. I'm over having a kid. Like, I can live my life in misery in this marriage without a kid. That's fine, right? But then I also had thoughts of fear. What if? It was the big what if hanging over me. So we got in the house. The first thing I did was drop my stuff. I went to the bathroom. He was like, "Take the test. I think you're pregnant. I honestly think you're pregnant." And I said, "I honestly think I'm not pregnant, but we'll see in a couple of minutes." So I closed the door, said a little prayer, peed on the stick. Within seconds, the pink line came up. And then within another couple of seconds, the second pink line came up. I was in denial. I said, "This is wrong. Let me take this other test." I said, "Lord, if this comes up, if this second test comes up, 2 pink lines, I'll believe I'm pregnant. But as of right now, I honestly don't think I am." So I took the second test. Sure enough, the 2 pink lines came up. And I got that knock on the door. And he was like, "What does it say?" And I just gave him the test. And he was elated. He called his mother, so excited that, I was pregnant. And she got on the phone with me, and I could tell that she wasn't so excited just because she knew. I think she knew the drama that was happening. And having a baby was just going to rock us, right? So in her grace, she said, "Congratulations. I'm so happy for you." And that was basically it. And I didn't have much to say either. Because I had so many emotions. So many emotions. I ended up telling him, "I know you're excited, but I need some time alone. I need to grasp and actually process what's happening here." So he gave me some time. I shut the door. I was like, "I'm going to take a shower. I need to sit in the shower and just process everything." And I remember feeling so much fear, realizing that I had another human being in my body at that point, that I was essentially like, my life turned upside down within seconds. Okay. I wasn't a mom when I walked into my house, but now I'm a mom because I believed, and I still believe, that once you conceive, you're parents. Once you conceive, you're a mom. Your goal is to carry that child to full term, God willing, healthy, and birth the baby. So motherhood, fatherhood starts at conception, from my belief. So I was scared. I felt some type of shame, knowing that there was going to be people that were going to think, "What the heck are you doing?" The people that knew our financial situation and kind of what was happening in our marriage, from what I shared, there was shame in getting judged from others, of being in a sucky situation, living in a sucky place, not even having gas to get to work, and I'm here with the baby and I gotta take care of a baby. Like, So there was shame there, um, a lot of fear, confusion. Like I said, I was still bad. There was never a thought that now that I'm pregnant, I don't want the baby. There was never that thought, but I had just came from my thought process of I'm cool. I don't gotta have a child. So now that I have it, like I don't know what to do. And I've never taken care of a baby in my life. Like how will I know? How will I keep this tiny human alive? You, all the questions. Um, I got to deal with an alcoholic, and how what kind of household is my child going to grow up with an alcoholic as their father? And the drama that I've had to deal with, I don't want this child to deal with that at all, ever. And I'm depressed on top of everything. It was just a lot of questions. And so letting the water just flow over me in that shower, I let it all out. I cried. I talked to the Lord. I probably was in there for a good 2 hours, I feel like, because I had to process this within myself, but I also had to process it out loud with the Lord, because my whole life just literally shifted. And in God's grace, because He is so merciful and so patient and so loving and kind, I felt His presence in that moment. I put my hand over my stomach. And again, and I'm getting emotional, but I had to give God control again. And if you know why that was so hard for me, you know. Because I honestly had nothing to offer this child except for my presence and my love, and I didn't know that if it was going to be enough. And so I essentially told the Lord, this is your child, because I don't know how to be a mom. I don't know how to be a parent, especially in the situation that I was in. So I put my hand on my stomach and I told the Lord, you have to get me through this. You have to give me what I need, the resources, the guidance, the information, the strength of what I need to take care of this child properly. I asked for protection. I asked for just favor, open doors. I asked that my child feel loved, and never feel rejected. And even if my marriage didn't last or heal or miraculously become the marriage that I've always wanted, I asked the Lord to just be with us, to protect us, to guide us, to be in the midst of my family. I told him that I needed him, that I could not do this without, and I really meant it, that I could not do this without him, because I knew without him I would fail miserably, and I did not want that for my child. And at that point, I felt peace. I walked out of that bathroom feeling peace. It was like a solemn peace. I wasn't, jumping for joy that night. It was the peace beyond understanding, and that's the only way I can think how to describe it. I still had my thoughts, and how is this going to work, and who's going to take care of the baby while I have to go to work, and how, What am I going to do if, my husband gets drunk again? What am I going to do if we start, arguing? How am I going to deal with that? Like all the things. Healthcare, I don't have enough money to pay any bill, let alone healthcare bill. Can I get free healthcare? Who's going to be my doctor? Where do I even go to find a doctor? Like all these questions. Clothes. I know I'm going to get bigger. I don't have money to buy maternity clothes. What am I going to do? So I went to bed with all those questions, but I did go to bed with peace despite all those questions. And I till this day, it is the peace beyond understanding, because I still don't understand how I went to bed peacefully with all the questions running through my head. I'm a thinker, so it was a lot of questions. And then just not knowing what tomorrow would bring. It was a lot. So this is going to be a 3-parter because I'm already at 31 minutes. But I want to leave this video saying this, that no matter how you're feeling or the situation that you're in, if you are pregnant, if you just found out you're pregnant and you are thinking of aborting your baby, or just honestly freaked out that you're pregnant in the first place, and stressing of what the heck am I going to do, to some element, and I know every person's story is different, to some element, I know what you're going through. I could have decided to abort my child because of the situation that I was in. And I did not go through everything. I did the surfacey of what was happening in our marriage and in our relationship and in our home. So to some extent, I know what you're going through, but it takes a lot of courage, and you have that strength and courage to reach out for help. I reached out to the Lord because I knew that He was going to save me. That was the only person that I knew that could come to my rescue, because He's done it before. Before I found out I was pregnant, with all the drama and all the trauma that's happened before that, every time I cried out to Him, He came through. So I knew that in this time I was able to cry out to Him again and ask Him for help and for His presence, and He would be there. And that's exactly what happened. So if you're dealing with any confusion or fear, or just you don't know what to do, being pregnant, being in a bad relationship, being in a bad situation, or you have fear and shame about being pregnant, I urge you, as a Christian, I urge you to go to the Lord and cry out to Him. Give Him all the feelings that you're feeling, all the thoughts that you're, just talk to Him and tell Him, I need your help. I need your help. And reach out to others. There are so many resources that handle situations like this. You do not have to go through your situation alone. You don't. Even if you have to reach out to me. I'm a social worker, okay? So even if you have to reach out to me as someone to support you in your journey with your pregnancy and parenthood, and asking or answering your questions, if I could answer them, I will. I'll be there. Or I'll lead you to somebody who can answer your questions. You're not alone. And I know that's really hard for some people to believe, especially in a situation where you just feel no hope and you don't see a way out. But the Lord will always, always, always give you a way. Not even to just deal with the situation, but take care of you and turn your situation into a testimony, into victory, into a situation where you can look back and say, the Lord is good because he did it. He did more than enough for me and my child. He protected me in my situation. He opened up doors for me, gave me favor, gave me what I needed, and even beyond what I needed, because he is that type of God. So I'm just gonna, I don't even know the words, but just go to the Lord. He can do all things, honestly. He can do all things. And if you're struggling, he's the number one to go to talk to just, even if it's just, you got to cry before him. I guarantee you will feel his comfort and his presence and his love for you, because he loves you. He loves the child that's inside of you, and he wants the best for you. He will rescue you. He will. So, all right, that's part 1 of this whole story. More to come next week, part 2. I don't know how many parts this is gonna turn into, but it's a story, okay? But the Lord pressed upon me to share my birth story with y'all. So I pray that whoever hears this, it touches you in some way. Okay, so all right. Well, I'm gonna go. I never know how to end these things, so I'm just gonna say bye and see you next week. Bye.